Previously, on the STS Guys Podcast.
What is going on, guys? What is going on? Welcome to this week's episode 186 of the STS Guys. And I'm Jeremy.
Hey, it's Larry.
Hey, guys, it's Nate.
And I'm Scott.
And this week's we have a special guest. The one, the only.
My name is Ed.
Wasted.
Yeah.
Hey,
Mr. Butt wasted himself.
Mr. Butt wasted
himself.
What's up, Ed? Thank you for joining us.
Long time
Glad to
fan,
be here.
first time.
And now, the continuation.
Hey everybody, this is Ed, My Figure Universe with Boosting the Signal, and this week I have Jeremy. Now you may see him on the internet as Comic Fury, you might see him on the STS Guys. You know, I don't know what you're going to know him from, but you're going to know him when we're done with this. Jeremy, welcome. How's it going?
Doing great, my friend. Doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here today.
Well, I'm glad to have you. Big fan of everything that you do. I'm a big follower of the STS Guys. You started following your podcast there, and
Look at that product placement.
it's a good one. Yeah, product placement. But anyway, and then of course in the last year and a half, you started your Comic Fury page on Instagram, sharing your comic book collection, and very impressive, very, very impressive.
I think some people I said I'm glad that you think it's impressive. Other people would say unhealthy. But you know what? I figure it's someplace in between.
I can understand the unhealthy comment, but you have to look at it this way. It's an investment into your future. Oh, it's an investment into your future with the comics. I mean, God forbid something happened and you need to sell them, maybe one of these will buy you a new truck. You never know.
So yeah, and the funny thing is, right? I do look at comics as an investment, right? And so one of the things is that I've learned over time, it's that everything has a price, right? So in this world, we're only temporary stewards of basically our entire collections, as anyways. And so I said, I get what I get, and I can enjoy it for a time being, but I figure at this point in time, I'm the temporary steward of that item until it passes on. I said to the next person, either through sale or something else, right? So half my collection, right? Like I said, I'm not the original owner of, and so a lot of my collection is vintage, and it's pre 1960, and no, fortunately, I'm not that old. So where I've had a lot of these secondhand, where someone had it before me, and part of the reason why I like comics and everything else, right, is that piece of history. And so having that connection that, hey, someone else at this point in time actually held this in their hands and it was in their collection. And so now at some point in time, it ended up in my collection, and at some point in the future, it'll probably end up in somebody else's. And so again, I'm a temporary steward of everything. So everything at the end of the day, it has a price and has a place.
In a way, we kind of need a Carfax for comic books,
what, that would be a great service. I would love, like I said, so in addition to because you have the grading companies, we have the census and things like that, right? It would be really awesome to have way back in the day, in the early days, I said, of elementary school. I'm not trying to date myself. They used to do things like Flat Stanley, right? Where you basically, hey, mail off as the little character, and then hey, people took pictures along the journey to basically, hey, show where he went. It'd be kind of cool to do that exactly with comic books, right? So to actually have hey, a Carfax or something else, so that way you could see who at one point in time owned this. And so what makes that interesting, right, is that some collectors surprise you. So I do have a comic in my collection that actually has a pedigree associated with, it was actually once owned by Nicolas Cage.
Really?
Because Nicolas Cage was a big, huge comic collector. And so, like I said, I actually got a comic from his collection, and then only just because it came in a letter, and it had the lineage listed with it. But I would love to have all comic books, like I said, had the option to do that, because like I think that'd be really cool to understand the history and story.
Yeah, I know of his comic book affinity for Superman at least. But just out of curiosity, what was the comic that you have in your collection that was his?
So it's some Batman issue. I'm trying to remember what the exact issue was. I said, now you got the gears turning for business of my Instagram posts that are actually coming up, because I've been gearing up for I've slacked off. Like I said, the last couple of weeks in posting because I've been crazy with work. But I've been gearing up for Halloween. And so I'll have to basically pull off that issue. I said before Halloween, so I can basically start my Halloween episode, my Halloween issues. I said coming up.
Now, last year you did that really well. You the entire month of October was Halloween issues of comics or horror-based comics, and then of course you did do a Star Trek month as well, which you had some that I had, you had some that I wish I had, you even had a couple that I used to have, and now so it's safe to say that I know you and I know, but for everyone that doesn't, it's safe to say that you have an affinity for Star Trek as well. And I'm curious what brought you into the fandom. What's your Star Trek story, as it were?
It's a great question. No, I am definitely, I said, a huge fan of Star Trek. I'm, like I said, again, Star Trek over Star Wars any day of the week. I said for me, they both have their place, but I am definitely, I said, more of a fan of Star Trek. What brought me into it, right, was I said I used to really enjoy Next Generation. And so watch Next Generation. I said when it was on, like I said, actually on TV, like right. I said I'm a little older, and so like I said, I started. I think not in the first season of Next Generation, but it actually started in actually season two. And so grew up, I said, on Next Generation, and then I thought it was like the coolest thing at that point in time when they basically when they launch every day they launched like I said a new series, right? They kind of like, had those couple overlap episodes, and so like then it was really cool to kind of see them like I said overlap into like the launch of I said Deep Space Nine, and then they kind of like, said launched that as its own series, and then after that, like again, this is probably gonna get me some hate, I said among basically the fan base, but my favorite series out of all of them actually is Voyager. And it's because I liked the different premise, I said, of the story of like, hey, it's not in the Federation. You're basically said outside. It's basically following the one crew. I said completely farly removed from home. And then their entire story was, like I said, their journey home. And so like I thought it was just such a cool concept. But yeah, Next Generation brought me in. I said Deep Space Nine kept me in, and then Voyager, I said, hooked me in.
I've been doing a rewatch of Voyager lately. It's the 30th anniversary this year, and
Oh God.
yeah, I understand. I'm a little bit older than you, so I oh God it a couple of times. Um, but yeah, and then like the other day, I started doing the trading cards from Voyager and just doing everything I can to celebrate it. And I'm realizing, like, I've watched it a few times, but as I get older, I start to realize problematic things about the show and problematic characters and like I'm realizing that maybe I don't really like Neelix, you know. It's like, like maybe I do have a problem with him. But did you ever have a favorite character?
Oh, well, I think every guy had a favorite character on Voyager.
I would have
Uh,
assumed seven of nine based
yes,
on conversations we've had.
yes, Jerry Ryan. I did like Jerry Ryan. I said for multiple reasons besides I said the obvious. But honestly, like I said, I really liked the relationship between Tom Paris and Ensign Kim. Like the dynamic basically between those two. I said just really kind of intrigued me about the series, especially like like how they basically kind of like said like partner together on so many different things, and then it was almost like a brotherly relationship. That's more than anything else, right? Rather than basically like like superior subordinate. It's like so they had like their Captain Proton stories. They had like some of the different things that they did. I said together like, on the holodeck. They had similar interests, but yeah, it was like they were like brothers from another mother. I said, but I like the dynamic between those two characters.
That's a really good way of looking at it. And you're right. There was there was an episode I watched recently that I think it was the beginnings of it. Like you can go back to certain episodes of Star Trek, be it DS9, and you can figure out when did Bashir and O'Brien become friends, or when did Spock and Kirk, and certain things like that. And I think I found the episode when Kim and Paris became that solid friendship, and it was good. It's fresh to go back and rewatch. But yeah, I like even with Voyager, talking about Voyager, I was going through comics because I thought, well, if I'm going to talk comics with you, I wanted to bring out a couple of my favorite Voyager comics. And then here, since I know that the 7 and 9, it was
like I said, pictorially accurate. I said 7 and 9. I said on an illustration.
Now, in your comic book fandom outside of Star Trek, who is your favorite? What's your main focus of interest when it comes to comics or comic related materials?
So like at the end of the day, I said Spider-Man is probably my all-time favorite title, hero, everything else. Literally I said from like I said the moment I first engaged with the character, like I said, it also has some like special memories. I said for me as well. I'll go into that here in a little bit. But then like to a character like I literally have like I said tattooed on my body. Like I said, like literally every single tattoo that I have is Spider-Man or Spider-Man adjacent or related. So like I have actually like Spider-Man character tattoos, logo tattoos, and then I just started basically a villain arm, basically where I just see tattooed Venom. I said on my left side, so I'm going with a hero's villain theme on, I said, depending on what side of the body you are. But yeah, Spider-Man is probably my favorite.
So are we talking like sleeves, or is it gonna like meet in the middle and there'll be like a battle on your chest?
So here's the thing, I'm actually thinking that, and so like I said, I'm still kind of planning things out, right? So like it was an inadvertent, I said of like, hey, how like things ended up on the right side versus the left side. So like my heroes, they're on the right, they're on the right side of history, right? They're just in their right, and it just happened to be on my right side.
There you go.
Completely by pure accident. I'm like, but hey, I said now that I like noticed I have a theme going, I'm going with it.
Happy accident.
Yeah, happy accident. And then I said my left side, right? Like I said for audio podcast. Yeah, so like my Venom tattoos, it's almost like a half sleeve at this point in time because it's freaking ginormous. But like say yeah, so I'm still kind of planning things out. We'll see what turns out over time. But kind of like the reason why Spider-Man's so important, besides this, obviously it's one of my favorite characters. Holds a lot of memories. I said both like positive ones and kind of some like negative ones too. And so like when I was younger, I was in a really, really bad car accident, where like I had to basically like kind of like relearn how to do basic things like read and tie my shoes and do everything else like that. I was as an in-house like sort of rehabilitation for a while, like where I had to like learn basically my basic faculties. I said all over again. And then Spider-Man comics actually like said taught me how to read again. So this was back when I was like 18, right? So I was a fully functioning adult. Car accident basically took that out of me. And so I had to relearn how to do these things. And so Spider-Man comics actually taught me how to read just because I could follow the images with the word bubbles. And so like I said, I can basically kind of guess what they were trying to actually say, even before actually you could recognize the actual sort of words that they were actually saying. And so that's why, like I said, particularly like Spider-Man likes to hold a special place, just because like I said, it's Spider-Man's like is responsible for like teaching me how to read and kind of getting my life back on track again, so to where I became a fully functioning adult. I said later on.
Well, that's great. I I've never even thought that, I mean, comic books are good. Reading is fundamental, as they've said since we were children, but I've never thought about comic books as being a tool for learning to read. The word association to the picture is really good. For some reason, the first thing that came to my mind was Hugo trying to read Spanish comics and Lost, and how he didn't understand what it said, but he was looking at the pictures and he could, figure it out. Or no, sorry, not Hugo. Hugo could understand it. It was, it doesn't even matter. We're now a Lost podcast. But anyway, but yeah, and I thought about that. And, but yeah, that's really good. And I love Spider-Man. I'm a big Spider-Man fan. Um, I probably was a bigger Spider-Man fan as a kid than I am now. Like, I mean, I when Mary Jane and Peter Parker got married, and then there was the Craven screwing up the honeymoon. Those were seminal issues that I remember from my childhood that have somehow stayed with me all these years. And about a year ago, I even found a what if from, like, what if they never got married. I was like, I have to have that because it's the polar opposite of the issues that I had. And it's like, I know it's not worth anything. It's it's sentimental value. It's worth something to me. Um, but there's been a few I've had that I know you have, like 300, is a very important issue. And had it as a child, no longer have it. But and then I don't know if it's popular. I don't know if it's popular to say. I know there are people that don't appreciate the time, but Todd McFarlane's run of Spider-Man is probably my all-time favorite. The issue when Spider-Man was dead and the hands coming out of the grave, that's seared into my memories. That issue. I love McFarlane art, and
Oh no. And that's the thing I said, and that's like I said, that's another thing about comics, right? And like I said, this kind of goes for all comics, is like this is where I appreciate the history. I said, and the teamwork. I said behind. I said the actual. I said like creation of a comic, and so this is actually what kind of like where I wish, like I said, for example, like I said, like I love Stanley. I said as for what he did for comics. However, right, I said, and this is where I agree with like Jack Kirby, like I said as well, as like I said, like right, a story will get you so far. However, it's the art that basically brings people in before they know it, before they actually understand what the story is. So you have to have that hook, I said, in order to kind of get people in, and then you can basically get them to enjoy the story. So like it's truly a collaborative effort between both like Art and Arthur, as to be able to actually kind of like tell those stories. And so like I wish, like I said, like Jack Kirby would have basically been alive during kind of the heyday of like the MCU and things like that, just because I think that there's like some creators that deserve more credit. I said than what they've gotten, just because, like I said, it truly is as a collaborative effort between, I said, so many of these different people. And so what you said specifically about like Todd McFarlane art, right? It's like I am too a huge fan of McFarlane art. And so like everything from what he did on Spider-Man, so like I said, when he helped launch Image Comics with Spawn and everything like that, like Todd was essentially, like I said, a neighbor. I said back when I lived in Arizona, because I said his art studio was literally right down the street. I said from where I was working at the time, and then he actually had an actual physical McFarlane toys store there where he hung out at the store. And so like, love him or hate him, he was actually always a huge proponent of the fans. And so he'd sit there and sign books for you nonstop. And then to this day, like at a con, like if you go to a con, right? Like he doesn't charge for a signature. Like he'll limit you on like, hey, get like a couple items signed, but he still doesn't charge for a signature, which
really?
is like, I think it's great. Like it's just like he's there for the fans. And so like he has such a following where they kind of like gatekeep that with like wristbands and things like that. But he's still not charging for it. And so I think that to me is like creators that are still there for the fans. And like McFarlane has basically his own characteristic issues, but at the end of the day, he still is there for the fans, and it's something I appreciate.
That's nice. I didn't realize that he did things for free. I don't have as many McFarlane comics in my collection as I did when I was younger, but I do have a lot of figures. Like I bought his Metallica figures when they came out, and the X-Files figures when they came out, and I'm looking around trying to think of, well, a couple of Spawns here and there.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Which
it's.
go on.
I was gonna say like I said he's built an empire, like,
Yeah.
right, and I think that's one thing that I appreciate about it. Like he just hasn't given up. Like he continues to go and beyond the comics, and as you pointed out, like I said, like McFarlane Toys, like he made action figures like cool again. Right, so where people basically adults like wanted to actually collect these things. And then I just remember like back in the day, like one of my favorite lines that he ever did was like this line of figures called Movie Maniacs, and so like it was like the most gruesome
That had
figures.
Robert Englund, wasn't
Yep.
it?
Yeah. So they had so they did basically all the movie theater runs, but then they also did like an entire run of like he partnered with Clive Barker to basically make these like these I'm trying to remember what the series was, like Tormented Souls. Yeah, Tormented Souls. And so it was basically there was like its original IP, but it was figures that were probably the most like demented and torch and like disgusting looking figures like of all time, which is like it was just someone having fun. I said with their own individual IP, and like I said, I can appreciate that.
I have one. I have one in my collection. It was like a carnival type setting, and the woman is like pinned upwards and hanging down and stuff. And I think I think I bought it just because she was half naked, and that may have been my only reasoning. And I was like, oh, yeah, hey, this is at Walmart. I'm gonna buy this. This is weird, you know. So, but yeah, I do remember the line. I do remember that. That's some good stuff. Now, let me ask you this: what's the one thing in your collection? This is a good question. This is a good one. It might be a thinker. But what's the one thing you collect that might surprise people, even if they know you pretty well?
I said I collect watches.
Really?
Uh, yes, I said I am big into horology. Like I said, so I said for the internet folk out there, I said if you don't want to basically pull out Chat GPT or Google, horology is the study of time. Um, the mechanical nature. So like I'm a very technical person, so I work in I said the tech field, right? And so I love mechanical things. And so there's something just so simple but yet so complex about watches. And so like the fact that basically like that there's like I said all these different complications and movements as that have been made over the years. And basically took like crazy craftsmen in like between like I said math and science and everything else to develop a lot of these different watch movements. It's crazy. So like for example, like even though I'm a huge guy that likes to works in tech, I refuse to wear an Apple Watch. I will only wear a physical mechanical watch with a dial. It has to basically be, like I said, a watch that basically the clicks. I have to wind. I have to basically it self winds. I will not wear basically a digital watch or an Apple Watch. So or a smartwatch. Yeah,
It, it,
watches are my surprising thing probably.
I appreciate that, and I can appreciate the what would it be, the analog of it and everything else. Um, that's cool. I like that. I never would have thought my stepfather collected watches. He had a what is it? There was a type that he loved, and I want to say Invicta. Is that a type of watch?
Yeah. So there's Invicta. Like Invicta's a watch brand. There's like I have like, and this is where like I said like there's like for the watch collectors out there. There's like so there's people who have like the different affinities for different brands for different purposes. Like you have basically the people like who are like hardcore Rolex, and that's great, right? Like I said, but at the same point in time, like I like watches kind of like comic books, right? I like stuff that actually has like a history or a
Yeah.
story behind it. And so like the watch brand that I particularly like said I'm fond of is a brand called Omega. And Omega actually represents the first mechanical watch that actually made the moon landing, if it happened. I'm like, but I said it was actually the first, I said watch. I said that was the first watchmaker that was utilized in space on the moon. So like the Apollo 13, like whole thing, they utilized, I said, in order to time those moon bursts, I said they used an Omega watch. I said in order to basically kind of make that round trip and get back to Earth safely. So yeah, so like I have an affinity for Omega.
If you ever make it to my neck of the woods, you'll have to check out a museum we have here that's dedicated to everything moon landing. So that's something I think you would like. There's probably even one of those watches. I'll check it. I'll make sure.
Oh yeah.
But
It would shock me. I said if there wasn't. Yeah. So yeah. So it's lovingly dubbed. I said in the watch community the Omega Moon Watch. So it's technically an Omega Speedmaster, and but so it's a chronograph. So a chronograph, basically fancy way of saying stopwatch. So it's yeah. So it's so the Omega Speedmaster, I said, was basically dubbed the Moonwatch, and so like by collectors today, it's like dubbed like the Moonwatch, and it really hasn't changed since like I said the 60s of when basically it made the trip up there, and so like it's generally.
Well, what's the expression, man? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly, exactly. But I'm curious. I said for you, like I said, I've known you. I said for a few years now. I said, albeit virtually, which is honestly I want to get on that topic too, because I think this is one thing that's awesome, right? Is like one thing that's awesome about technology is like if you were to go back, like I said, when me and you were growing up, I said it was always like, hey, don't talk to strangers, or hey, don't do this. I said, hey, how can you really trust this person? When now, literally, the majority of the friends that I actually have, I said I have met online, and they're some of my closest, dearest friends. And I said I actually relate more to people I said that I've met online that I know personally. But we'll get to that here in a second. I want to know what is your surprising collection? Like, so what's something that you collect that's that I don't know about?
Let's see. I'm pretty sure you know I collect movies
Mhm.
and comics and figures. Something that would surprise people. Um, That's a good question. That's a really good question to have it thrown back on me. Memories. I think that would be an interesting thing, and it's not a cheap answer. Like I look at like my friend. I have a friend, Brian, and I have family members. Like my family themselves. I've kind of pseudo become the keeper of home videos for family, and for even friends. Like we had a friend that passed away 13 years ago, and so I have all of the home videos of him and the pictures and stuff for that family so that they don't lose them. I keep things digitized. I have backups on backups on backups. I'm crazy insane about backups. Um, Even digital is not forever, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've kind of become a pseudo collector of memories, if nothing else, so that like if we're doing a family function and let's say my wife is over playing cards with her family, I'm taking pictures without anybody knowing because it's good to live in the moment, but
Mhm.
it's sometimes good to look back and see those moments. So yeah, I'm gonna go with memories. That's about the best answer I can give.
No, and that's a solid answer, and it's not a cop out answer. And I know specifically for you, like I said, and that's why I'm like I would it's not a cop out answer even for you specifically, because one thing I've always appreciated about you and your storytelling is right is like you share these memories. Like I said online publicly, right? Like I said, it's you know how awesome it is to see basically like, hey, young Ed, I said out there, I said on some of the videos that you posted, like honestly, I think there was like a couple months ago, right? I said you posted one where I think you were sitting around with your friends. I think you were drinking a Zima or something.
Yeah,
And so
it
like,
was Jim
but
Beam.
it was
Could have
yeah,
been the
it was
Jim Beam
awesome.
the other day.
Yeah, it was awesome to see. Just because, like I said, it's like you like I don't have anything like so like I literally have zero from basically one before my car accident. But then also like I really don't have a whole bunch of stuff even before, like I said, like from like the last like 20 years. I like probably in the last like 10 years, right? I have like a ton of stuff because we've gotten more like it's super hard not to save stuff. I said now because I said you have automatic backups of stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
But like like I said, like early 2000s and before, like I hardly have anything. And so like when I find something every now and again, like I think like my memories, like I said, are not even held in pictures, are held in like specific items. So I think the other day I actually found my Blockbuster card. I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like, it's my block. I'm like, this Blockbuster card holds a lot of memories just because I'm like, so many different things I did with this stupid Blockbuster card.
No, I get that. It's interesting too. Like I'm looking up right now at this far wall behind me, and I'm when I talked about the memories, there was something I started doing in 1995. Some friends of mine, we decided to go camping, and I had a video camera, and I recorded everything, and I turned it into a movie. I wanted to edit it, so I edited it down to like a 37-minute movie, put opening credits on it, end credits, music, everything, and we did it for 25 years, every year after that. And so I have them all lined up. They've been put on DVD. They're digital. There's VHS copies. So, um, and I think that's the one thing, like, I always had a camera. I've always had a camera. Um, I like that. And you talk about automatic backup. Fun fact, I don't use the cloud. Not in any way, shape, or form. No clouds. Nothing is backed up digitally for me, like in a cloud. Everything is everything's on little external hard
Mhm.
drives. Depending on which transformer it is, I know what it is.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So like I said, yeah, also fun fact. So like the reason why I am so into the cloud, I said sometimes, is because I can access my personal things anywhere, anytime.
Yeah,
And this is especially important with media. So I'm a big, huge physical media person. Like I like to this day, like I refuse to like buy a movie digitally. I will not do it. Like I refuse to absolutely do it. Just because one, at the end of the day, you actually don't own it. You basically have a
yeah,
long term lease. I said on the content. But at the second point in time is like you start to have people who actually, so you start to lose, like I said, different pieces of content over time, or it's changed,
yeah,
and then it's edited. I said for basically like politically correctness or this, that, and the other. Like, and here's the thing: I don't think anything at the end of the day, like you have to observe something for what it was at that specific moment in time. Like, hey, what may have been like socially acceptable in 1990 may not be socially acceptable today. But like I said, you can't necessarily erase that part, I said, of that show or that media, like I said, at the point in time, because I
yeah,
said that's what was the norm at that point in time. And so why I bring all that up, right, is because I actually digitize all my physical copies to basically create my own Netflix. So that way, like, hey, if I'm on the road or doing this side or the other, I don't have to go and grab the physical disc. I own the physical disc, or I own the tape or this, that, or the other. But I can basically stream it. I said if I need it, but it's my own copy. Um, which kind of brings me to a question I have for you.
yeah,
Like so, like as you were growing up, right?
yeah.
Because like this is pre ages of DVR and things like that. So like,
Sure.
were you one to basically where you had to like wear out tapes to record your episodes of Star Trek? Like, and like, hey, did you have to basically like, hey, I have these 3 episodes that are my that are my favorite, but I only have so much VHS room. So like, hey, what do I basically overwrite, re-record, or did you just like stack tape upon tape upon tape?
I had stacks upon tapes on tapes on tapes. I guess you could consider me anal retentive. I love detail oriented things. I wanted everything to be perfect in every way. So like when Star Trek was on, I would have a VHS tape in. The settings would be SLP. I knew that on SLP I could get 6 episodes on each tape. So while watching it, I would have my finger on the button to hit pause when commercials came on, unpause when it came back, and I recorded every episode. And every episode would be labeled, but then the side of the VHS tape wouldn't just say like Star Trek. No, 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 no.
No.
I would draw the logo for the show, what tape number it was, and I can back this up. You give me time, I'll go back through home videos. I will show you what it looked like because it's crazy. Now I don't have those tapes anymore. I have them all Blu-ray, DVD,
Yeah.
whatever. I upgraded through the years. I do have, if you look behind me, I do have my Star Trek VHSs though still, the ones that were important. But yeah, I mean, tapes, lots of tapes, man.
Yeah.
I did the
No,
same thing with every show.
yeah, it's like I remember because like I said, we like like growing up, like I said, I didn't have like any money for anything. And so like I had like this cycle of like 3 or 4 tapes. And honestly, it's when you look back on it, like a tape was like a couple bucks, I said, a few bucks. But even then, like, so we couldn't afford it. And so like I had like this group of maybe like 4 or 5 tapes. And there's so many different things. It's so challenging to figure out like, hey, what do I overwrite and what do I want to keep and this, that, and the other. Because I said I'd go into a time to where like, hey, especially I said that at some point in times like there'd be like certain shows that I want to watch where I'm like, hey, you know what, I want to save this episode, or hey, I want to do this, I want to go back and rewatch it. And like it was always a pick and choose on what I have. And then like I said like my all-time favorite episodes that had never left the tapes. Right. And so like I had my favorite episodes of Next Generation. I said that never left the tapes. I had my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine and Voyager that never left the tapes. And then like I said, eventually I said when I actually started actually working and getting a job and stuff like that, and then I could move into other formats. But yeah, I just Star Trek and like recording specifically on a videotape actually holds a very special memory because I vividly remember I said recording Star Trek episodes specifically on tape because no one in my house liked Star Trek or wanted to have anything to do with it. I was the only person who like wanted to wanted to watch this. And so like it was always a challenge of balancing out the one TV that we had to figure out, hey, when the reruns were on, like I said late at night, when I could basically time when basically people were in bed, so I could just utilize the VCR to basically record the episode, so that way I could watch it basically at a later point in time. But yeah, that's a very good Star Trek memory for me is actually recording the episodes. I said from the air.
I love that. We when it aired on Monday nights, and our affiliate, the affiliate that we had locally didn't show, like we didn't get Voyager until 1996. Like it took a year for them to finally show it. Luckily, I have an uncle and an aunt at the time that were in Indiana that were recording it for me, putting them on tape, sending them to me, or I'd go pick them up, whatever. So thankful to them for that. In fact, probably one of my favorite memories. But when the show did air, like Next Generation or Voyager would air, it would be on Monday nights at 1 in the morning. So we're talking like Tuesday early morning. I'm still in school at the time. So I had to make deals with my parents like, okay, can I stay up? And they're like, you can stay up, but you got to give up either Friday or Saturday and you got to go to bed early. Friday nights I was in bed early because I wasn't going to miss Star Trek on Monday, and that it was a sacrifice, but it was a worthwhile sacrifice because yeah, I could have set a VCR to record it, but what if that VCR failed? What if there was a power flicker? There's no like, oh, it's going to be on later in the week. No,
Like I said, there was no going back. Like I said, I think that's what people just don't. I think what people take for granted today is just like, hey, the ability, and this is where I actually kind of I miss it sometimes. I actually kind of miss the lack of choice, and because where like, what the airwaves decided for you of what you were going to watch.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think right now, like I almost sometimes get like paralysis because there's too much content and like you can't decide on what to watch. And so it's like the gamble of, it's like, hey, whatever's on at the time gets on. But to that point though, right, it's like, yeah, like if there was no going back, it's like, hey, you may not catch that episode for a year plus.
Yeah.
Because I said depending on basically, I said what the I said like how the affiliate actually did their reruns or anything else like that, right, and what the contracts were. And like when you were out, you were out. There was no like catching up, there was no doing this. And like I remember especially like really got like I said like honed in, and it was like almost like a crazy man, especially during the 2-part episodes. Like, hey, you got a 2-part episode, you really have to basically like make sure that everything's timed right. Like in those 2-part episodes, you were always on your best behavior, so you didn't get grounded either, so you can't watch TV and this, that, and the other. Like no, I'm like, I need to basically watch part 1 and part 2, you know, like Wolf 539 part 1 and part 2, or Scorpion part 1 and Scorpion part 2. Like it's just like you can't miss basically the 2-parters, because it's like you can't have half the story. Like you can't have it.
Yeah, nothing worse than that longest summer when between season 3 and season 4 of Next Generation, you're like, what? Like, I gotta wait a whole summer. Season 1, season 2, when they ended, there was no cliffhanger. This was new. Then season 3 happens. We're like, what is this waiting? What was this to be continued?
Yeah, like it got crazy. Like the old cliffhangers. Like it got crazy.
Yeah, here's a soundtrack from those episodes right here.
Yep.
How much I listened to this that summer going, like, okay, so what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? It was crazy times, man.
No, like I said, it's just like I think that again, like part of me basically appreciates those times where I'm like, I like the internet and technology have basically done wonders, like I said, for things. But there's other things I'm like, I actually miss. I guess I miss. I said not having basically this like the constant stream, I said, to like information, or like, hey, like sometimes you don't need to basically be like connected, I said, to everything. I said sometimes it's nice, I said, to like be, like I said, just sit out on the world and live in the moment, right? And so like it's such a foreign concept today. I have nieces and nephews, so where like they have no idea how me and you grew up, right? It's like, hey, so you don't come in until like it's dark outside, or like, hey, you don't come in until this, that, and the other, or like you can't readily get a hold of somebody. It's like, hey, you go out and rode bikes, and then you were either at basically friend A's house or friend B's house, and if you weren't at either one of those, like who the hell knows you were there? And then you knew the rules, like, hey, just come back, as before it gets dark outside. But it's I miss those times. Because I think that today's I said youth, I said, just doesn't have an appreciation for the simple things.
My parents had a pretty good rule in our house. I grew up around the Orlando area and stuff, and it was okay as long as I checked in once every 3 days, so they knew I was alive. It was okay. It was like, all right. And I had a friend. I had 2 good friends. I had my friend Jamie and my friend Steven. It was pretty sure I was going to be at one of their houses. If I wasn't, then that's when they would start to get concerned, But yeah, it's different times. The closest analogy that I can find to give people nowadays, like younger generations, is, hey, you want to watch that movie? Yeah. Oh, you can't find it? It's on a streaming service? Oh, no. Okay. Imagine going to a building to get that movie, and everyone else in town's already taken that movie, and you can't get it, and you have to wait until one of them bring it back. I was like, that's tough.
Yeah,
But
it's crazy. It's crazy. I said like going to Blockbuster, Hollywood Video. Like I said, I have very vivid memories. Of all those things. Now, like one thing I've always wanted to ask you, Ed, right?
okay.
So you have like said you've been basically like probably one of the biggest Star Trek fans, I said, that I know. And then like again, right? There's tons of people out there that are into Star Trek. But in terms of my personal friend circle, right? You're the biggest Star Trek fan that I know that's in my personal friend circle. Like what got you specifically, I said, into Star Trek? Because one thing, and I said you may have already just discussed this. I said on a previous episode that I may have missed, but I want to know like how has that journey basically changed from when you very first got into it to like now, like you're not only running an Instagram channel, you're now starting a podcast. That's for this. Like it's a fandom that's not only like continued for you, it's basically it's continues to grow stronger as it within you. So I'm just kind of curious to kind of know your story as well.
It started when I was young. I was always under the belief that it was my grandfather that was the one that got me into it, but I found out later it was actually my grandmother, his estranged wife at the time. Um, she was into science fiction, and I would go visit. But my grandpa, my memories were like he would say, "Here's the TV guide," and I actually have home video of this, so I could insert video here. But anyway, I have he would give me the TV guide and say, circle the shows that you want to see. And I'd say, okay. And he would record them and he'd say, put them on VHS tape when I'd come back and visit, and he'd sit and watch them with me. And then he would say, well, have you heard about this? And he'd play something. We'd play Star Trek. And then like the first thing I ever saw was the Menagerie, which was the two-part episode where they had taken scenes from the cage, and Spock was on trial for kidnapping Pike and taking him to Talos 4, and had a death penalty for taking him there. So I watched that episode on a loop because in my mind that was the only Star Trek there ever was, because he had bought my mom an RCA disc player. At least my mom will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that he's the one that got it for her. But I would watch that over and over and over and over and over again. And then he introduced me to the Wrath of Khan. There's more Star Trek, and it grew from there. And then I was around when Nickelodeon was first starting, and we weren't all like, my mom didn't want me to watch certain shows on there, but Nickelodeon was showing the animated series. And I went from there, and then it was books. Like, so you can't really see them, but all my books from my childhood
Mhm.
and comic books, and I'd read them. And to me, there was no such thing as canon. It was all new adventures with the crew. So in my head, all those memories were there. And I would take the comics and I would read them, record myself on a cassette tape while I was reading them, play them back when I was laying in bed, and listen to the stories over and over and over again. And it just grew from there.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Like it's like like I got into it because I watched I was flipping through the channels one time, and I'm trying to remember what specific episode it was. Um but it hooked me. It was in one of the early seasons. It's because like, I know it was one of the early seasons because I said they've only in the Next Generation series. I said they only did it like a handful of times where they separated basically the saucer section from like the battle bridge, and like it was one of those episodes. And I thought, like, man, that's super cool. And then I said I started watching it, and I said from there, and then my neighbor at the time, I said it was an older couple, and then their daughter lived with them, and she was, like I said, really big in this project. But then, like I said, I figure out basically like, hey, this is like a bigger thing than what I think it is, because I said she had a collection of the plates, like the mail order, like like Star Trek plates. I said that they have, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I started. I said that's when it started my Next Generation journey, and then like I said, I really got into Deep Space Nine, and then ultimately Voyager as well. Um, like one thing I've always wanted to ask you too is like, what's like I said, I'm not going to ask your favorite episode.
Okay. Well, I have that.
So what's an episode that gets a lot of hype, that you agree with the hype, And then what do you think is an underrated episode that deserves more hype?
Well, an episode that gets a lot of hype, and I agree with the hype, is The Inner Light from Next Generation. Um, I've actually recently met someone that hates that episode, and it fascinates me that they hate that episode. And I know they're watching, and I know that they know I'm talking about them. And the other one that I think is underrated, and it's a weird one, but it's Deep Space Nine, and it's The Muse. It's a Jake Sisko episode where this thought vampire is like stealing his creativity from him while he's writing Anselm, his book, and she's like behind him and she's like sucking out of his head and I just love that damn episode. It's like I'm a sucker for a Jake Sisko episode, and I think it's underrated. You don't ever hear that on a top 10. Nobody's like, it's like, man, you want to go watch the Muse? No one's watching the Muse. But yeah, so that one definitely. But good
No,
question.
no, I've always been a fan. I said of Inner Light. I said as well because for as much story, I think the thing I appreciated, and this is where I think like Hollywood, like in general, can literally take note for how much story you can fit into such a condensed period of time, and then everything is like perfectly placed and perfectly timed. Like it didn't need to be longer, and it didn't need to be it didn't be short. It was like the perfect length for as much story as they were able to get into, and as much history as they were able to cover, through those flashbacks and memories. I said that the probe basically kind of that Picard experienced, through the probe, right? And not to mention the music as well. I said I also appreciated that.
It really comes down to pacing.
Yes, the pacing is perfect. Like
Yeah.
it's out of any like Star Trek, non-Star Trek, it is probably one of the best paced episodes of something I've ever seen for as much as they were able to cover and what they intended to do, and they pulled it off. And I think that's why like when people say like, oh yeah, like, oh, I don't like Inner Light, like it's just like outside of the story. I'm like, just look at it from the technicalities of what they were able to actually pull off with it. Like that in itself is, I have such an appreciation for.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was 44 minutes long, and in that 44 minutes, you feel like you had an epic, and it's a testament to those that wrote it, that paced it, the editing, the directing. It's a magical collaboration of everything, and there's a lot of episodes like that. But yeah, that would definitely be one of the major reasons right there. Um, that's a good one. Jeremy, I'm gonna have to wrap it up with you, man. And I feel like we could have turned this into a 4-part special. But otherwise we're gonna go all night. And I'm not Ron Shear. So that can't happen. Um, and if you don't get that joke, I'm old. But yeah, no, but I appreciate your time, man. I do want to give you the floor completely. I'd like you to tell people where to find you on socials.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I said, you can find me. I said my comic book channel is at Comic Fury. I said on Instagram. I said normally I post every day. I said lately I've been slacking, but at Comic Fury. I said if you want some cool comic book content. As Ed also mentioned before, I said I am part of another podcast called the STS Guys, we're a sometimes weekly pop culture podcast where we sit around, and talk about anything geeky, nerdy, and cool. Didn't know if I can cuss on this, so I will keep it peachy. And
Try not to. Try not trying to. That
yeah.
saves me on editing.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm also I said if you get to know me, I said you can follow me at TX Germs. This is my personal account, or if you want to know a little bit more about me, I said that's where I post. I said my more personal stuff. But yeah, no, thanks, Ed. I appreciate you giving me the floor. I appreciate you having me on. And honestly, like anytime I can talk Star Trek or comics or anything else like that, like I really appreciate it. And then really appreciate you're doing this podcast as well. Like I'm looking forward to tuning into, I said, not only this episode to see how it went, because I was for some weird reason I always like to see like how I project. I said on when I talk So I actually listen to our own podcast episodes,
Yeah.
just to make sure I sound okay. But then I'm also looking forward to not only your back catalog, but also kind of the episodes going forward as well. So like, thank you for doing this, and I look forward to your future ventures here.
Well, I appreciate that, and everything sounded good. You look good. You know, you don't look washed over like my white vampire skin that I have. So I appreciate that. but but yeah, and I appreciate this, and I definitely will have to have you back, some other time, and we'll talk again. So
Awesome.
until
Thanks, my
then,
friend.
live long and prosper, and thanks for being here.
Absolutely.